Hey, everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, SuperBake. Let's talk about stuff. All right, got my tea here. It's piping hot. I just made it. It's in my Snorlax coffee mug. I got this coffee mug a long time ago. This thing's freaking huge, but I just saw it at Walmart one time and I was like, I have to have this thing. It says Snorlax is my favorite Pokemon. I mean, he's not. I like Snorlax, but I don't know who my favorite Pokemon is. Trying to think about that. I always was partial to Squirtle and War Turtle, but I don't know. It's either I don't know, Psyduck, War Turtle. I always like Sandshrew as well, but yeah, I don't know. I like the turtle Pokemon, but either way, this coffee mug's awesome. So is that tea ready yet? Mm. I mean that's like sipping temperature, but it's not like gulping temperature just yet. It's right on the cusp. But I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent here. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the gym that I go to, but I swear like people there will just walk like right in front of me. It never fails. Like I'll be walking to get something, like whether it's like a dumbbell or something, and like we'll make eye contact. Like I'll make eye contact with another guy at the gym, and like he'll still kind of like walk towards me, and we have like this awkward little exchange where we're trying to figure out like who's gonna go which way to go around each other. It's like I don't know why. I always encounter that at the gyms. Like I always seem to be walking in the same path as everybody else, and it always leads to like these awkward interactions. And I'm just like, get the hell out of my way, dude. I'm trying to lift. I'm trying to lift, bro. No, I'm not a gym bro. I don't use that language. But anyway, so I saw before I get into my episode, I saw something where I guess the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders went live, I think, on Thursday. Was it the 24th? I'm recording this podcast on Saturday. So yeah, I think it was the 24th. Apparently, it's just been predictably chaos. I guess it sold out in a matter of seconds. I remember when the PS5 came out, and it was just like that was during the. Now, granted, that was during the pandemic, and that was when the supply chain was just completely screwed up. So yeah, it was damn near impossible to get a PS5. I don't think I got one for like between 6 months to a year after it was released. So yeah, either way, I think I said in a previous episode, I'm not too concerned about the Switch 2, so I don't really care right now. I'm gonna hold off on it. From what I've been hearing from people who have played it, like from like YouTubers and stuff that got like early looks at it, it's cool, and like Mario Kart and the new Donkey Kong game are pretty awesome, but like not really worth spending that much money on the console. Like you're better off just kind of waiting for now, like waiting a little bit for it to come out later, which I'm perfectly fine with. So still gonna hold off on that. But yeah, I mean it's something that I'm keeping in mind because I do love the Switch. And I know I said that I probably wasn't gonna get a Switch 2 this year, so and that probably will still hold true unless some really awesome games come out. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But yeah, not a priority for me. Anyway, for tonight's episode, I'm going to do a review for Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2. And I didn't bother memorizing the name of the episode. That's how professional I am, everybody. So I'll just go over the plot real quick. So pretty much picks up right where the last one left off. Abby and her group make it to Jackson. They've holed up in this cabin that's fairly good ways away from the city or from the town in their quest to find Joel and get revenge for. It's revealed in this episode that, spoiler alert, just in case you haven't seen it, but it's revealed in this episode that it was Abby's dad that was murdered by Joel. And we see in a flashback that Abby has, well, it's more of a nightmare, but we see like she's going down this hall towards where her father was. And this other version of Abby is basically telling her not to go in there. And that was a pretty cool, intense moment. I actually really liked that. I don't remember if that was in the game or not. I've been watching footage of the cutscenes from the game while I've been watching the show to kind of compare and contrast how it if it's like faithful to the source material or not. And I was actually pretty impressed by how faithful the show has been, at least up to this point. But yeah, that nightmare sequence was definitely an interesting twist on Abby's character and kind of showing the inner turmoil she's going through over the death of her father. There is a scene later on where we see Abby. She awakens this basically an army of infected as she's keeping control, or she's doing patrol for she's keeping lookout for patrols from Jackson basically. And That part, I mean, I remember that from the game vaguely, although they take it a step further in the show. It's actually like an army of infected that show up and like literally an army. I think in the game it was only like maybe like a few dozen, maybe 100 possibly, but it wasn't like this huge army that was chasing Abby around. So that was a deviation from the game, and it definitely felt like the show trying to up the ante a little bit, making things a bit more exciting and leaning more towards the action side of things. I think one of my criticisms from the first season was that I felt like the infected, while cool, didn't have as big of a role in that one, and I wish they had a bigger role. It almost feels like this episode was sort of like HBO's answer to that problem that I had. So yeah, that was it was interesting. I don't know if I was necessarily on board with it or not. I feel like they probably could have dialed it down a little bit. Um, but yeah, she awakens the infected army and then she runs into Joel's character. And one big change they made in this episode from the game that I did not agree with was that instead of Tommy being with Joel, it's Dina who is with Joel when they encounter Abby. And I did not agree with that. And I'll get into the reason why I don't agree with that here in a little bit. But basically, they save Abby from the infected. We also did get to see, speaking of the show being faithful to the game, the scene where Abby is running from the infected and she is between the building and the chain link fence, pretty much beat for beat how it was in the game, even up until the point when Joel saves Abby. Like that was pretty faithful to the source material, and it was genuinely, it was a white knuckle moment for sure. Like I'm pretty claustrophobic, so that scene where Abby is like crawling under the fence and the infected are all on top of it trying to get to her and stuff, and like you see like that camera angle from her perspective as she's crawling, that really freaked me out just watching that scene. Um, so yeah, I'll give the showrunners credit for that. That was definitely well done. I like that they kept that in the show. I think that was definitely like good scary material to keep in there. I get another drink of tea. My throat's very dry. All right, that's ooh wow. Oh, that burned the throat on the way down. Hurts so good. It's like right there. It's almost like fully drinkable, but not quite there yet. But anyway, come back to that a little bit later. Got to keep my vocal cords stable so I can talk longer. I feel like my problem with the podcast is that I tend to talk a lot and I don't drink very much liquids while I do the podcast, and I think that sometimes gets me. My voice starts to crack while I'm talking, so trying to be better about that. But anyway, yeah, that sequence was really cool, but I was not a fan of the fact that Dina was there with Joel instead of Tommy. And the reason why I have a problem with that, and it's hard to talk about it without getting into major spoilers from not just what I assume is going to happen in the show, but also from the game, from The Last of Us Part Two. So major spoilers if you have not seen the show or or played the game at all, and you don't want this spoiled for you. But basically, what happens is later in the episode, Abby ends up killing Joel because it's revealed that he killed her father when he saved Ellie in season two or season one, at the end of season one. And she gives him this whole long spiel about who she is and how he killed her father along with the other Fireflies. And in the game, instead of Dina being there, Tommy is there with Joel when they get jumped by Abby's group. And this serves an important narrative purpose because Tommy goes to hunt down Abby and her crew to get revenge for them for Joel's death later in the game. In this episode, Tommy is instead in Jackson, and he is there because there is an attack on Jackson by the army of infected. The cordyceps that are in the pipe actually have been giving, I guess, sending out signals to the infected, and they end up attacking the town. And Tommy defends the town along with other people there in a pretty big battle sequence that gave me Game of Thrones vibes. It reminded me of Game of Thrones, and I think it was season four, where Jon Snow and the Night's Watch when they fight the wildlings. It reminded me a lot of that, especially with the barrels the barrels of oil that they dump on the undead or the infected, and they just blow them up. Definitely reminded me of Game of Thrones right there. But anyway, Tommy being in that scene served a narrative purpose from the game because it gave him number one, he wanted to get revenge for Joel's death, but number two, now he knows what Abby and the others look like. And I think he even knows what their names are because I think in the game they do reveal the names of at least a couple of them. The pregnant woman, Abby, and I think Owen, the guy that Abby likes, I believe. I think they reveal their names in the game. So I personally I didn't like that change. It felt like it's raising a lot of questions for like what they're going to do with Tommy's character later in the season. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I personally was not a fan of that. Um, and speaking of the fight that happens in Jackson, I'll just talk about that real quick. So there's this big battle sequence where the infected attack the town of Jackson, and then Tommy and several other people have to defend it. And while it's a cool scene from a cinematic perspective, especially with the brute that comes busting through the wall, I felt like it was unnecessary. It's not in the game, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure it's just in the show. And um, kind of like with the army of the infected coming up out of the ground, like it just felt like it was padding. And it also felt like kind of a, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, kind of a lazy excuse to keep Tommy in the town and away from Joel. I feel like they could have just had Jesse there if it was a necessary thing that had to happen. They could have just had, I believe it was Jesse. Instead, he's with Ellie's character when they find the store full of pot. And I think in the game it was actually Dina that was with Ellie in that scene, but instead they switched Dina with Jesse, and I don't know why they did that. That was really weird that they did that in that scene. Yeah, they could have had Jesse in the town fighting off the undead, or I keep saying the undead, the infected, and they could have had Tommy with Joel in that scene. It just, for me, from a narrative perspective, especially just from playing the second game and knowing what happens, to me, it just would have made more sense to do things that way. So yeah, the battle sequence, I mean, it's not incredibly long. I think it's like in all probably maybe like 15 minutes total. But there's also a lot of like convenient things that happen in that battle too. Like the fact that like hundreds of the infected come busting through the wall and they're just tearing through the town. And on the ground level, like there's people on the rooftops picking them off with guns, which I was like, okay, that's pretty smart. I like that they thought of that. But then on the ground, it's Tommy and like three other guys with flamethrowers, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna get killed. Like, and two of the guys ran away, which I can't say I blame them. I'd be shitting my pants and running away too. Granted, I don't know anything about flamethrowers. I don't know how powerful they are, but like, I feel like when you've got hundreds of human bodies barreling down at you, like, I can't imagine four flamethrowers are going to stop them. So, yeah, that scene just seemed plain silly to me. And then the fact that like, so Tommy takes on the brute basically by himself, and I like how when you watch it, all the other infected run right by him, even though it makes no sense for them to do that. Like they should have just ganged up on him. So again, it felt like kind of lazy writing in that moment, just an excuse for them to have this action scene where Tommy has a fight scene with the big brute, and of course it dies at just the right time when he's using the flamethrower on it. So the whole battle sequence in Jackson, while certainly tense and exciting, I did not feel like it was necessary. So I was not a fan of that either. In particular, I didn't hate it. I just didn't feel like it needed to be in the show at all. And I'll talk about the scene where Abby kills Joel. It plays out for the most part just like it does in the show, but it does have a few deviations as well, besides the fact that Tommy's not there. Um, Number one big change that they have from the game that looking at it now, I don't think I'm a huge fan of it, is the fact that Abby actually reveals to Joel who she is. She tells him about how he killed a doctor when he saved Ellie and how the doctor was her father. In the game, I don't believe Abby ever reveals that to Joel. In fact, I don't think she ever even tells Joel who she is. At least I don't think so. I know they have like some slight introductions in the game, but beyond that, I don't really think that they reveal much to Joel or Tommy about who they are. So the fact that she revealed like who her father was and the fact that Joel killed him, it's interesting. It was an interesting deviation, but I also kind of felt like it went on a little bit too long. It felt like she had a little bit too much dialogue. And don't get me wrong, I think Caitlin Deaver does a good job of delivering that dialogue. Also, by the way, I think I pronounced Caitlin's name wrong in the last episode. I think I called her Dever. I believe her name is pronounced Deaver. So my bad for that. I apologize for getting that wrong. Not a professional here. But anyways, yeah, I think that Caitlin does a good job with the dialogue, but I feel like it's more of a problem with the writing. She goes on and on giving him this speech about, why she's doing it. And I think she does the best she can with what she's given. I just don't know if the dialogue really works that well. I think it worked better in the show because I don't know. I guess I'm kind of a fan of less is more, and I like the perspective that Joel never really knew who these people were. It made it seem that much more, at least from his perspective, it made it seem that much more like scary and terrifying. For all he knows, these are just random people just trying to kill him. So, I mean, yes, it does make for a more powerful moment for Joel to see the consequences of what he did trying to save Ellie. So, I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about it, I suppose. But overall, I guess I kind of prefer it in the show or in the game a little bit more as far as like how Abby handled that. Also, I do like how while she's in the middle of her speech, Joel interrupts her and basically just tells her to shut the fuck up and get it over with, which I don't know if that was supposed to be the show's way of kind of poking fun at the game where in the game Joel says, "Why don't you just go ahead and say whatever speech you've got rehearsed and get this over with?" And then Abby just goes ahead and starts beating him. So I don't know. I don't know if that was the show's way of maybe poking fun at that. I'm not really sure. But either way, other than that, it plays out basically the same. Abby grabs a golf club, goes to town on Joel, and then Ellie shows up to save Joel. And I gotta say, in that scene, Bella Ramsey does give a really heartfelt performance. I was actually, I mean, not that I'm surprised that she, did well in this scene, but I was actually pretty impressed with just how much emotion she shows in that scene. It's actually a genuinely sad moment when she sees Joel, when she sees his bloody body, and then when he's finally killed by Abby. It's brutal. And also, just like in the game, I like that they show Abby, even though she does go on, it takes a little bit more time than I think it does in the game, where she's actually beating Joel with her hands and she breaks the golf club on him, which is a detail that I don't believe was in the game. I kind of like that went on a little bit longer than it should have, but I like how in the game Abby doesn't have this look of joy on her face. It almost looks like a combination of like horror and um almost like exhaustion. Like not just physically but also just mentally. Like she's been hunting this guy down for so long and she's finally caught him and like it, she got her revenge, but maybe it's not what she wanted. I think that's a major theme of the game and the show too, is that revenge, we think we want it. We think we want to get revenge on people who have wronged us, but then once we get it, we realize, well, this isn't quite what I thought it would be. And I think we see that on Abby's face when she's leaving the lodge. Like when she's leaving the cabin later in the episode, she's covered in blood and you can tell like the look on her face, she doesn't look satisfied. She just looks empty. And that was kind of the same expression she had in the game. So I like that they kept that mostly the same. One deviation that I noticed is that in the game, the way they kill Joel is they actually beat his head in, but in the show, she actually stabs him in the neck with the broken shaft of the golf club, which was an interesting change. I don't know why they did that. I'm not sure if maybe it was because they just didn't want to have to do the makeup for Joel's head to be caved in, or if they didn't want to have to use CGI for it. I'm not really sure about that, but either way, I mean, I think it worked. I didn't really have a problem with that because otherwise, it pretty much plays out exactly the same. But yeah, and then the episode ends with Jesse, Dina, and Ellie taking Joel's body back to town. So it ends on a very dark note, and of course, we tragically say goodbye to Pedro Pascal in the show, who, as always, is fantastic as Joel. Even in this, like the scene where he's getting tortured by Abby, just the screams of pain that he gives off are just like so gut wrenching. Like I like Pedro Pascal, so it was really sad to see his character go in this, just like it was sad to see Joel die in the game. And I think he gives a great performance as Joel, even though I know that through flashbacks we're probably going to see more of his character later in the season. So my overall thoughts on this episode, I have mixed feelings about it. Just go over some of the positives. There were definitely things about the episode that I liked. I liked the chase scene with Abby when she was running from the infected. I thought that was genuinely scary, intense. Again, like I said, particularly the chain link fence moment. I thought that was very well done, very faithful to the source material, and definitely gave me that sense of claustrophobia. And I thought Bella Ramsey does give a good, heartfelt performance during the scene with Joel's death. That was a big moment that I think needed to have this raw reaction from Ellie's character, and I do think that she nailed that for the most part. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of the battle sequence in Jackson, it was still exciting. I'll give the show credit. For something that didn't need to be there, it was still pretty cool to watch. And just on a technical level, like looking at it purely from a cinematic perspective, it was impressive to see. So I I I don't know, I'm kind of torn on it. I didn't necessarily think it was necessary, but it was cool. So I think they handled it relatively well as far as the battle sequence goes. Now, as far as negatives go, I do think the scene with Abby and Joel, like I said before, I feel like it went on a little bit too long. There was a little bit more dialogue than there needed to be. And I don't know, like the fact that it ends with Abby literally punching Joel in the face felt a little bit over the top. Maybe that's just me. I'm not really sure. I didn't like that Tommy wasn't in that scene with Joel. I feel like that was a major plot point from the game that needed to be there. And it has me very concerned with how they're going to handle Tommy's character later in the season, just knowing what I know about the game, knowing how big of a role that he plays, and that he is going to be the one of the characters that tries to hunt down Abby's group. Because it makes sense in the game because now he knows what they look like. He knows and he has an idea of where to find them. He knows how to hunt them down. In the show, what is he going to go off of? Ellie and Dina's description of them? Like, that could backfire horribly. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had people in my life describe the way somebody looks to me, and then I see that person, I'm like, that they don't look anything like how you fucking described them. They don't look anything like that. So yeah, that I was not a fan of that change from the original source material. That didn't make sense to me. So I'm curious to see what the writers are going to do with that. Um, and then yeah, beyond that, like I said, I think the battle sequence, while cool, it felt like unneeded padding. It didn't seem like Tommy needed to be there. And maybe they could have cut it short. So yeah, like just a few things in there that just felt, and also there were just a lot of just silly things in the battle that just didn't make sense to me either. Like the dogs show up and somehow the dogs are the turning point in the battle. I didn't quite understand that. I feel like this show sometimes is gaslighting me a little bit where like things happen and I'm like, wait, was that in the game? And I have to go back and check. I'm like, no, that wasn't in the game. Like, I don't know. But yeah, for me right now, I guess my overall thoughts, I guess I would say I definitely didn't like some of the story elements. And while there were some things that were cool, I don't know if they necessarily worked, like the battle sequence again. So I guess I have very mixed feelings on this episode. I would say for me, it's about half and half. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that the bad outweighs the good, but especially with Joel's death, this episode leaves me feeling very nervous about how the rest of the season is going to play out. Because now it's all going to be on Ellie and Abby's shoulders like it is in the game. And I'm just curious to see how the writers are going to handle it. I guess this is more or less, I am nervous. I guess I have less faith in the writers of the show than I do in the actresses. Like Ramsey and Deaver have proven to me that they can both handle these respective performances. I think they've both done really well in both episodes so far. So this is nothing against any of the actors or actresses involved. It's more or less the writing. I'm just really nervous, especially with some of the bigger themes that the game dives into. I'm really nervous to see like how they're going to handle it in later episodes. And I'm also curious to see how this is going to play out in the final episode because like I said before, my understanding is they're splitting up the game into 2 seasons. So I'm wondering like where is this season going to end at and how is that going to play out? So time will tell, but I will definitely say this episode has me it has me concerned. I guess would be the best way I can describe it right now. But again, I'm still going to try to reserve judgment on the rest of the season until I see every episode, and I'll have a final determination for the season then. But yeah, so far compared to episode one, I thought episode one got off to an okay start. Wasn't great, but it was, it had me interested for what was to come next. And this episode, yeah, I would say about the same as the first episode, maybe a slightly lower score, I guess, if I had to score it. I don't know if I could give it exact number rating, but yeah, those are my thoughts on episode 2 of The Last of Us season 2. So we'll have to wait and see what the rest of the season brings us. And with that, I think that's going to conclude tonight's episode. Once again, if you like what you heard, I am on Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and I definitely appreciate all the support you guys have given me. And I'll catch you all next time. Take care, everyone.